Hello, BookTube. I felt like I needed a change of pace from Hyde Cottage, and I was driving down the road in my bright red truck. I found a moldering old dump that the owner was willing to give me for a song. It's got a bunch of moldering old books, but I'll have them towed very soon. But I thought I'd save three of them. I'm going to save three books that I found in this moldering old wreck, and I thought I'd show them to you as a kind of I don't know, a translocated book haul. And the first one you will all know, I just mentioned it on this channel the other day, it's Persuasion by Jane Austen. It's old uh, Penguin Classic trade paperback with Lyme Regis on the cover. This is the story of Anne Elliot and her lifelong doomed love affair for Captain Wentworth. And as I mentioned the other day, it's, in my opinion, some of the most heartfelt stuff that Jane Austen ever did. Very happy to find it as a perfect condition trade paperback. Then the next classic is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And this is the story of Anne Elliot before the events of Persuasion, when she was an unruly, tempestuous, and too smart for her own good governess, working for a very imperious man. Again, totally delightful. And then the last book is The Voyage of the Beagle, which is it takes us back in time to Captain Wentworth's adventures on the Beagle, which was a very small ship. People don't tend to remember how small and crappy a vessel the Beagle was because it's become so famous. Because Captain Wentworth had as a paid companion, a gentleman companion on his voyage, Charles Darwin, a young naturalist named Charles Darwin, who people forget was not the official naturalist for the Beagle. That was somebody else, somebody that history has rightly forgotten. Instead, Darwin went along to basically be a conversation partner for Captain Wentworth. And Darwin didn't like the experience at all. Darwin was a landlubber through and through, down to his DNA, although he didn't know what DNA was. He called his time on the Beagle one continual puke. But it was when he was on the Beagle and voyaging all over the place with this ship, which wasn't all that much longer than this room. People think that the Beagle was this big thing, but it was during all of those adventures that he had that are written up in this book that he started to see the natural world in a new way. He'd never seen it before, and suddenly, with a new, fresh pair of eyes, looking at obviously related but changed species, looking at the differences that seem imposed by island topography, suddenly pennies started to fall. Suddenly started to think the beginnings of the thought that would, in a few decades' time, revolutionize the entire world. And keep in mind, On the Origin of Species, which has its seedbed in the observations in this book, was meant to be just a précis of a much longer work, of a much more rigorous and scientific work. So although Darwin was being conversational, because it was just a summary, so he was thinking this will go out to the popular audience, and although he was writing at speed, he wasn't trying to make On the Origin of Species entertaining reading. Quite the opposite. It's just a happy accident that he had a wonderful prose style. Whereas The Voyage of the Beagle is much more in line with voyage literature. Although it is episodic, and although there's a lot of today we did this, the next day we did that, it is extremely entertaining adventure writing, in addition to everything else, by the least adventurous kind of person you can imagine. But still, the book actually works wonderfully as, I won't even say a companion to Origin of Species. It's a totally different book. It makes you wonder what lessons in literature Darwin was learning at the same time he was learning about finches and albatrosses and whatnot. And Captain Wentworth wasn't all that much of a prize as a vessel captain either, but that doesn't come across really in this book. For that, you would have to go to, like, for instance, Alan Moorhead did a great book on Darwin and the Beagle that will give you the whole story, not just what you get here. Although the introduction here is by Steve Jones, who does a really good job, so that helps as well. So those were three canonical classics that are all that I'm going to save from the rest of this bric-a-brac. I don't know who the losers were who lived here before I bought the place, but I don't think I'd want to meet them in a dark alley. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up and get back to inspecting the place. Thank you, BookTube.